Oh man, this is the most I've ever done for a cup of coffee.
Tough day, I'd say.
It's black water to me.
My Copio, I think, could match this.
Okay, my name is Justin Ko, and
I'm Andre Ratos, and I'm with my partner here, Justin.
today we're going to talk about coffee, tea, or meth. We're not going to talk about meth, are we?
No, meth's illegal. I don't think we should divulge too much on that. I met you during our Orang Asli trip, and that's where you were going on and on about your coffee. And I was saying, I'm a Copio guy. And this guy comes along and says, let me show you the difference. And wow. He came along, he had his machine, he had his mocha pot, and he said, try this. I tried it. Boom, bam, pow. I got hooked. The process is still a bit too much for me, but I get allured. It's something that you have to open your bandwidth to, and see whether you want to take it on as a hobby and pair it with tasting.
I see myself as a coffee enthusiast and not a coffee snob. And I do think there's a huge difference there. You are right. I do look at coffee as a hobby. A lot of people say, hey, Justin, you're so into coffee. Why don't you open a coffee shop? And I was like, when you do things like that, you will just destroy the fun out of it, isn't it? From Monday to Friday, I really drink crap coffee. I think I told you this before. I drink expired coffee. On Sunday, I would really spend like half an hour to 45 minutes to do, what you saw in the video just now, to do a real good cup of espresso. And it's really not just about the end result. I would say it's about the process as well. I realize this kind of stuff is not for everyone.
I wasn't sure it was for me as well.
Like you mentioned that you are Copio kind of a fella, and I don't think there's anything wrong with Copio. I do think a lot of people undersell black coffee, as in Malaysian style coffee, or there are good coffee out there, but like anything good, you just need to pay good attention on it.
And that's where you have showed me the difference. An underlying theme here is the stimulant, caffeine.
It's the only legal drugs, even for Olympic sports.
That's allowed.
It's allowed.
And the caffeine, it makes all the difference between a Copio and an espresso.
There's this thing called decaf, right?
That has no caffeine or very minute caffeine. You need 20 milligrams of caffeine to make a difference.
What's the point, man?
Like you said, you're here for the taste, right? If you're not here for the caffeine kick. So this is where I put to you, did the caffeine kick come first, or did taste come first?
People who drink decaffeinated coffee are the purest of coffee lover because they really out to get the taste. And nothing else, just the taste and not the kick, not the caffeine.
Caffeine would be tasteless, I would think.
But they are controversy when it comes to decaf as well, because the solvent that they use to dissolve caffeine out of coffee beans. At one point, there were concerns about health issues as well.
Carcinogenic,
and all-rounded, chemicals that you don't need in your body.
Coming to our question, did the caffeine kick come first, or did the taste of coffee come first? As we know, what we discussed that day was it started in Ethiopia, right?
It started in Ethiopia, probably a myth.
Yeah.
There's this goat herder that saw those goat eating some cherries off of a bush, and then he observed that his goat is a little bit more peppy. I am sure this is a myth told over and over again.
I wouldn't discount that, these herders have nothing better to do but look at goats all day.
From goat eating berries until a cup of espresso. You saw the process, right?
I saw that process.
Until we have to use acupuncture needle to make sure every granular of the coffee grind
but Justin, that's just a refined process. It probably is more for the flavor, but the extraction process is the same, right? Boiling coffee, boiling beans. No,
I really do want to agree with you, but in real life it's so much more nuanced to that. It is almost like saying A cup of Nescafe is exactly the same as a cup of Starbucks. Is exactly the same as a home brew coffee. It is not. It is very, very different, and the difference is in the details. I know my kind of attention to the detail is not for everyone, but it does make a difference. I do think a cup of instant coffee is not the same as an espresso.
Taste-wise.
Taste-wise.
But we're talking about caffeine or taste. That's where we have to define our parameters. I know you are for the taste. For me, I started coffee just for that caffeine kick for my early morning exams. And that's how I got to know coffee. But I just got to know coffee with Nescafe. That's how I started. I didn't even know what espresso was.
Guys, we are not sponsored by Nescafe, okay? You are not entirely wrong, but I am not in for the taste entirely as well. You know, I'm into running and cycling, sports, stuff like that. And caffeine, like I said earlier, is one of the most potent performance-enhancing drugs that is allowed. That is allowed in Olympics, in almost any sports. I were to say, more than the taste, I'm there for the caffeine as well.
Yeah, but I think it's more of a case of hit two birds with one stone, right?
Sure.
Taste as well as caffeine. You gotta take caffeine, you might as well enjoy it, right?
There is a danger there. You don't want caffeine, say, in the evening. Actually, right now it's about 4 o'clock when we're recording this. We are not supposed to have coffee, but just for you guys.
Yeah, just to keep us up.
It's a long day.
Yeah.
Trust us, it's a long day. Please subscribe.
Coffee is not my area of expertise, but caffeine. Caffeine is something I've looked into because I rely on it on a daily basis, And there's so many factors that you and I have talked about. The amount of caffeine, different beverages, different coffee, tea, having what levels of caffeine do they have?
How about the timing? When do we consume the caffeine?
So I told you I don't take any coffee or tea after 3 o'clock. There's a half-life. Half-life is how long it takes for your body to excrete the chemical or product to half its original content that it entered your body with. Coffee, your average dose takes about 200 milligrams of caffeine that you take in, and that takes probably about 3 to 6 hours to reach half of what it is. And even then...
So to be clear, it's not entirely out of your body at 6 hours?
Oh, there's still like half of it, maybe 100 grams left.
Right.
And that is still going to have an effect on you. I think we should go into that later and how actually it affects into you.
What about people who say, you know what, I'm that kind of a person who drinks coffee just before I go to bed and I sleep like a baby?
There may be exceptions, yes, but I think what happens is we are all ingrained more or less in the same way. I believe it may have a less of an effect, but what will happen is your quality of sleep might not be as good.
I'm in the opinion that there is no such thing as I'm not affected by caffeine even just before I sleep, no matter the people. Yeah, some people metabolize caffeine differently than others, but quality of sleep will be affected in a bad way no matter the human beings, because biology is biology.
Caffeine is a stimulant, it's likely to affect your consciousness.
They may not realize it because you're asleep, you're not conscious, but the quality of the sleep will be affected. And this has been shown time and again in many research. Sleep research is one of those areas like really interesting, They actually go into a room where you go to sleep and people watch you sleep.
The respiratory physicians do that a lot.
They do stuck those subject into MRIs during sleep as well.
Functional MRIs,
Functional MRI during sleep. Yeah. Oh my God. I'm not sure if I can fall asleep.
Yeah, you can't, but maybe they give you an anxiolytic or something like that.
Wouldn't that affect the research?
Actually, you're right. Yes, it would skewer the studies. So they'd have to naturally fall asleep on their own.
I don't know how. I don't want to be one of those subjects. Sure. But we agree that caffeine will affect the quality of your sleep, no matter what your subtype is.
People who tell you otherwise, I think they're just acclimatized.
They don't realize the baseline. Your sleep could have been much better if not for the caffeine. So
exactly.
Don't drink coffee before sleep. I had a personal policy of not having coffee past 3 o'clock.
Same here.
But coffee, it's actually the black sheep of the family, isn't it?
Tea has caffeine. Chocolate has a bit of caffeine. Okay, so you've got to measure. I think the primary attribute you have to look for in caffeine is the amount of caffeine. Okay, and each one has a different level. And don't forget, there's a lot of sub varieties in there. There's so many varieties of tea, so many varieties of coffee. The way you brew your coffee, the way you brew your tea makes a difference. Dark roast, light roast, they all make a difference.
I have something to say about that. The consensus knowledge, the darker the roast, the less caffeine there is in the coffee. This is actually has been debunked.
That's interesting.
Okay. Caffeine is a chemical that is quite fragile. If you roast it for too long and too high of a temperature, it will degrade. Now, what they did is they actually checked the actual amount of caffeine in blonde roast, medium roast, and darker roast. They had found that it has relatively same amount of caffeine.
Clearing that up, I've always thought that the dark roast or the type of roast makes a difference in the caffeine content.
That is the problem. If we can offer something to the public, is that the reality is always more complicated than, just a silver bullet of dark roast, less caffeine, blonde roast, more caffeine. I give you another example. I have an ex-colleague that when he drank kopi or from the kopitiam, the Malaysian style coffee, he can drink a whole cup of coffee and he'll be, on his way, no problem. One time I made my espresso, not unlike the one that you're having right now. He had a slightest of a sip, and we almost called an ambulance for that.
I would say, me coming from a Kopio background, Kopio is actually very diluted, of course, for commercial purposes. Whereas your espresso is the direct 30 ml of pure roasted coffee essence. And of course, your caffeine content there is going to be significantly higher.
I still think there are many more complexity to what meets the eye.
I think us having this conversation makes me want to go into it more.
Let me muddy the water even further. You had bak kut teh before, right? Okay, for those of you, bak kut teh is a Malaysian Chinese dish. It's famous for its pork and its herbal content, right? Anybody who had bak kut teh at night will tell you that it's gonna be difficult to fall asleep because of the stimulating effect of the herbs.
I didn't know that.
Oh. Okay, you went to the wrong one. You went to the wrong stall.
Like you said, maybe I took it not realizing that it's gonna affect my sleep.
One of the main herbs that they use is a root, which is in the ginseng family.
I don't think that's a caffeine stimulant.
No, I checked this. Ginseng and all the ginseng family is known to be a stimulant, and it's a very potent stimulant. We all know that. There's no controversy about this. We know that, but there is zero caffeine in ginseng.
There are many varieties of stimulants.
Caffeine may be the main topic today, but it is not the only stimulant.
Many. The other stimulants that's available in Tongkat Ali, you mentioned.
Oh, Tongkat Ali, one of my favorite.
Popularly and controversially known as what, sex stimulant?
Let's not go. I did not say that. I said it's for sports, okay?
Maybe we should edit that part out.
I don't think. You guys gonna hear about that?
Not on our first episode. You'll get the wrong impression of us.
I use it for sports recovery, sir. It is a testosterone stimulant. There's so many uses for testosterone.
Of course. There's muscle building as well. I would agree.
Muscle building, general health,
The context you were looking for, right?
I am. Let's move on. Let's move on to talk a little bit about the types of coffee that is grown around the world. One of the most famous one, of course, is Arabica. Arabica actually, I'm surprised after I did this research, 60% of the coffee grown, I might be wrong. Internet people are not always right, okay? Do your own research, okay? But my research says that Arabica is grown about 60%. Means 60% of the coffee grown around the world is Arabica. Yeah. I really doubt that. I have some question about that statistic because you know why? Yeah, this is Arabica, yes, but all my life I was told that Arabica is actually the good stuff, the expensive stuff.
Or we've been led to believe.
No. It is.
In your own personal experience, being the coffee connoisseur, have you noticed?
My personal experience, and I'm right.
Okay.
Arabica is, I was always been told, is the good stuff. So having known that this is actually the majority coffee grown, okay. But here's the thing, Arabica is the only coffee variety that is endangered.
But yet it's grown in vast amounts.
I have no idea. I don't work in a farm.
Well, how can it be endangered if it's...
It is endangered because it is very, very fickle about the temperature, about the elevation. To grow Arabica coffee, you need around 18 to 21 degrees Celsius in general.
Grown in the highlands or something?
It's only grown in the highland. Everything else, like for example, another famous variety is the Robusta. Robusta, you can grow it anywhere. Hence the name robust.
That's surprising. I would think Robusta would be a lot more popular.
It is not. It is the crack coffee. It is bitter. It is one note only. And that's it. Yeah, that is just bitter. There's nothing in there. And that's Robusta.
That's Robusta.
That's Robusta. And majority of the kopitiam coffee is Robusta.
Oh, okay. That's news for me.
If you ever were to go shopping in the supermarket and then you see a blend of Arabica and Robusta, it's 90% Robusta.
They're just putting that 10% in there to claim.
The joke is it's for flavor purposes for the blend. Oh no, it's for economics.
Just for marketing value, is it?
So that's Arabica. It's really difficult to grow. It's grown in highland, and because of global warming or climate change, whatever you want to call it, they need to grow it higher and higher in the mountain. Right. And as you go higher in the mountain, the farmland, the size of the farm is smaller and smaller. Yeah. At that rate, we will have more and more expensive Arabica coffee. And Arabica coffee was the original coffee that came out of Ethiopia. There is Robusta, which we mentioned. Malaysia do have a lot of Robusta. We have Tenom coffee from Sabah.
And that's Arabica?
Robusta. That's Robusta. There's a lot of coffee grown in Johor as well. There is not much highland in Johor.
They were saying the other two types of coffee bean were Liberica and Excelsior. And
Liberica and Excelsior, yeah, there you go.
Excelsior is supposedly grown in South Asia, is that correct?
Yes, okay. Yes. Very apt for you to bring that up because before you brought that up to me, I never heard of the name Excelsior before. At least I don't know if I've ever tasted Excelsior before.
I've never seen it as well, but I know it's grown in South Asia.
It looks exactly like coffee. That's the other two you mentioned, Liberica and Excelsior. There you go. All of these are abundant and not concerning at all when it comes to their survival or, their diversity. Only Arabica is endangered, threatened category.
But yet, it forms the majority of the coffee consumed in most of the cafes around, right?
We have Johor, we have Sarawak, we have Sabah. We grow coffee in Malaysia as well.
Gotta check out the Excelsior coffee.
Excelsior, although Excelsior coffee was previously considered a sub-variety of Liberica, that is why I never heard of it. Last time, people would thought that's just Liberica. So it's not. Now it's its own sub thing with its own special brand of flavor and aroma in 2006, quite recent. Some of the flavor notes most often associated with Excelsior coffee are fruity, woody, tarty, popcorn, earthy, and deep and rich. None of those make sense, right?
Let's actually dive into this. This is what Justin got me hooked into coffee. He started going on about the aroma, how it hits your palate, the what fruitiness, bouquet, is it? And I was like, I didn't. Oh, acidic, and bitterness and all that. And he was telling me it's not bitterness, it's acidic. And I was like, what? I think what happened there was ignorance. So on my part, it was mainly the ignorance here that I didn't care. He opened my eyes there in opening what this taste should be, what that taste should be. Do you taste this? And yeah, okay, I got that, but it was still a lot to bear. And I think it's not something that you would learn overnight. It would be something that you acquire over time. And that's where coffee actually becomes a refined taste. You got to figure out whether you will have the bandwidth to expand as a hobby and a tasting as well.
I think you're underselling yourself. You are tasting exact same of cup of coffee. Your biology and my biology is the same. You just need the vocabulary to expand that, and it takes time. Yeah.
And bandwidth.
It's like char kway teow lah. You don't tell me Penang char kway teow and the Johor char kway teow is exactly the same. No, there's so much nuance. As a Malaysian, you can tell the difference. But coffee, all you need is just some time.
It's a learning experience right now. The process, do I do that process that you just saw? It's a bit of work, you know. You want something to rush and go in the morning, so maybe we just keep it to Sundays.
What makes a good cup of coffee to you?
Before I met you, it was actually just a caffeine kick. That's all I wanted from coffee. That's all I got acclimatized to in my medical school, learning, keeping me up to study for my exam. That's all I wanted, a caffeine kick. And it grew on. The taste of it.
Dude, yes. It sounds so depressing.
I know. Now I've been enlightened. Yeah. So, but that's how I started.
Okay.
So, again, to each his own.
You don't even know what is a good cup of coffee. It's just a drug. It's just a medicine that you need to take.
Well, when Coffee Bean first opened up, I think that's when I first realized there are better coffees than Nescafe.
Again, not sponsored by any coffee company out there.
But that was my first, pop my cherry moment. Are we allowed to say that?
Okay. So let me spend some time to explain what is a good cup of coffee and what is a less acceptable cup of coffee. Let me put it politically correct, okay? Okay, a good cup of coffee must have different experience, more than a single experience in a gulp, in a cup. It shouldn't be just bitter. It shouldn't be just sweet. It should be very, very colorful. There is coffee bitter. Bitter is not bad, but bitter can be bad, like licorice. I know some people hate licorice, but licorice it's bitter. But that kind of bitter, you learn to enjoy it. If it is a blonde roast, there is fruitiness to it, and you describe it as sour. There is good sour and there's bad sour as well. Bad sour would be vinegar. You don't want that. It's a good sour would be, let's say, green apple, strawberry.
That's a good analogy.
That is what those coffee snobs were to describe as fruity. There are notes like that. Sure, you can put milk in coffee, and these days, children put a lot of funny milk into their coffee. What? Coconut, soy milk, oat milk. Okay, cow's milk. For me, it's cow's milk. Uncle like cow's milk in coffee, right? Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. If you put milk into a cup of coffee, now your creaminess of that milk will dull out a lot of those extreme tastes as well. So yeah, it's another level into the enjoyment of a good cup of coffee. But sometimes to certain purists, they will say, oh, that it's taking away from a good cup of coffee as well. And they are not wrong. It's really a diverse way to enjoy a single art form. Long story short, it has a lot of gradient to the experience. But let me tell you what is a bad cup of coffee. One note, I've said it before, bitter. And there's nothing else there. There's no aroma to it. There is nothing, just bitter. And just burnt, charred. That's one note wonder.
One note is actually quite interesting, the other spectrum that's involved in tasting coffee. But I think it has to come down to being aware of what it is and identifying it on your palate. It's like programming your brain to identify it. If you don't know, you don't. I didn't know all this while.
A cup of coffee, you can have everyday 3-in-1 and just black water, and then you drink it and you get on with your day.
The difference with those coffees is sugar. Sugar makes all the difference. The thing that you said just now, the milk, the sugar, and all that. Coffee just gives you that hint, that bitterness, and the milk accentuates it.
You are lucky if you get milk. Most get hydrogenated palm oil.
Oh, you mean the evaporated milk?
No. Hydrogenated palm oil. That's what they're drinking.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes. The 3-in-1.
Uh-huh.
There's no milk powder in the 3-in-1. And the cheapest form of creamer is hydrogenated palm oil.
Yeah.
Which is a carcinogen. What is carcinogen?
Something that has the potential to cause cancer within your body.
So why are we still selling it?
Well, this comes down to the amount of carcinogen. If you take it on a daily basis, yes. But you take it in minute amounts, it's not supposed to affect you. So when they say carcinogen, that means it on a regular consumption, it has the ability to cause cancer. And that's the difference. So you can't avoid. There are carcinogens in our everyday lives and food, and you can't avoid it 100%.
Just like cigarette, you can't avoid it.
You can. You can avoid it. You can't avoid passive smoking, but you can avoid cigarettes. Boys and girls, don't smoke.
Don't smoke. I'm just joking, okay? Hydrogenated palm oil. Personally, I made a choice as much as possible not to.
I didn't know about hydrogenated palm oil till I was in med school, and that time I was taking what? Was it? Cafe. I don't think it's around anymore. So we're not committing any blasphemy or anything like that. They are. Oops, sorry.
Okay, how about this? Have you heard of margarine?
Oh no. Margarine, I recall it was made for the army to survive, right?
It's World War II, and we have ration. We don't have food, children. So the cheapest oil to produce was palm oil. And palm oil, it comes in a liquid.
Yeah.
And to make it a semi-solid, you hydrogenate it. Basically pumped it with hydrogen gas. And you just gargle it with hydrogen gas. And it becomes a semi-solid. And put some yellow color in it. We'll call it
margarine, which looks like butter. I can't believe it's butter.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not just...
It's cholesterol-free. It should be good for you, right?
Yes, cholesterol-free, but full of hydrogenated oil, which is bad for you.
3-in-1 coffee, just mainly sugar and creamer.
No, but the main essence is the coffee.
You need the bitterness of the Robusta, and then you put sugar in it, and you got bitter, and then you got sweet, and you put some creamer in it, you put some coloring in it, make it a little bit more golden. You can have a good cup of 3-in-1, cheap and cheerful.
I think it's the confluence of the taste buds when you're drinking one of those. It's the bitterness, the milkiness, and the sugary that plays on you and elicits a very nice taste, just like sweet and sour chicken.
Where did that came from?
It's two conflicting tastes: sweet, sour. But it tastes wonderful because you're tasting a bit of sweet and you're tasting a bit of sour. It plays in your palate, just like coffee does here. So Justin, do you remember we talked about how caffeine hits you?
Yeah.
Yeah? We were talking about the interplay in the brain. Sure. Perhaps you could give me a bit of literature on that.
Let's do it. Explain it like I'm 4. Caffeine. Caffeine is a type of methylxanthine. Now, hear me out. You don't have to know what exactly that is. It's not important. But what you need to know is coffee, tea, chocolate, and many other natural food that you eat every day contains caffeine. Not just coffee, okay? There are many other food as well. So when you drink coffee, now, that's what's gonna get you. You see, inside your brain, there's a lot of receptors called adenosine receptors. Now, these adenosine receptors are built especially to bind to a chemical called adenosine. Now, this adenosine, when it binds to your adenosine receptor, your brain gonna release something called GABA. Now, this GABA is what's going to make you feel sleepy, and this happens throughout the day. The moment you wake up, the more adenosine going to bind to your brain throughout the day, and you're going to feel sleepy. Okay, now caffeine comes into the picture. Now, this caffeine going to bind to the adenosine receptor, but they do not react to it. The only thing they do is they prevent adenosine from binding to the receptor. Now, this is a problem. Not a problem exactly if you like it. There are good things that can happen. For example, like increasing your attention and alertness. They also can increase your physical performance. It will increase your metabolism rate. It will do a lot of good in cardiovascular as well. Improve memory, decrease liver disease, and lower diabetic rate as well. It also has a lot of side effects that you may not want. For example, high consumption of caffeine is known to increase your anxiety. It increases vasoconstriction and causes high blood pressure. It is addictive, and you can build a tolerance to it. A lot of tremors, shaky hands, urinations. You're gonna go to the toilet more often than you should have. Irregular heartbeat, and also loss of fine motor movement as well. You can't thread a string through the eye of a needle. So there you go. That is how caffeine affects your brain.
That's a wonderful explanation. I thought you did it quite nicely for a non-medical. Well, you are partly medical, but you did quite nicely, to explain it quite easily. The key factor here is what we use in the medical books is competitively inhibits. Competitively inhibits for the receptor. So that being said, does it affect? It does obliterate your tiredness, but does it kill it? I don't think so. I think what it does is it delays it because the adenosine is still floating around. And once the caffeine half-life that we talked about just now goes away, the adenosine can then bind to your receptors, right?
Yep.
And you will get tired and it will hit you. That's why you were saying don't take coffee beyond 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
Right? Because your coffee half-life is going to hit till 12 or 1.
But what does that explanation doesn't tell us is that how does it affect our physical performance?
Let's go to the American Medical Association. They too are saying, pay attention to your consumption, the amount you take in. And then they say it's got a lot of value to it as well as negative points to it. Caffeine may help in depression. How it metabolizes varies.
Do you know what's the flip side of that is about the depression? Is anxiety. Over caffeinated, one of the main side effects is anxiety.
Yes, that's what you mentioned in your talk just now. Your hands would be like shaking all over the place, and
that's just physical, your mental as well, anxiety. This is true for everything. Anything and everything that has an effect has a side effect.
Yeah. So I think the key here would be finding a balance. And like you said just now, how it affects one person may affect a different person as well. So you individually have to find your own balance.
Let's talk about balance because this is so subjective. Let's talk about balance in an objective way. Like for example, sports. I have learned from many gurus, even real life coaches, that caffeine, yes, it will improve all form of performance, physical performance. But it only works if you are not tolerated. You're supposed to fast caffeine before you go into a competition. Let's say you have a marathon next month. You want to fast caffeine for the last week before the competition. And during the competition, you take caffeine just before the competition starts. And then your performance will be, more than what you are used to. And that is how caffeine can help. But if you every day 7 cups of coffee.
Yes. This actually brings us to the topic that we were on a hot debate about. I remember you telling me that we were discussing the topic of tolerance. Now, with any drug, caffeine included, the body develops a tolerance to caffeine, and you will need more of it. You will find that when you take coffee every day, it may not have the same effect.
Yes, you need more of it for the effect, it's the same effect or getting less and less, but the side effect will get more and more.
And the reason for this is the same thing you talked about, the adenosine receptors. So how does your body compensate when you have caffeine blocking those receptors? It will produce more receptors. So that's why you need even more caffeine to block the extra receptors that your body's produce. Now, is this effect permanent? No, it's not permanent.
Hence, that's why it is not regulated. If it is permanent, then I'm sure some people would regulate it.
Yes, yes, of course, of course. So because your body has the capacity to reduce the receptors when you stop, okay, and that's why you had the explanation to me. You go teetotal on coffee, and you don't take it for maybe a week, a few days, and then you try take it again. You would have an almost psychedelic effect. That was your words.
My word was, it's gonna be a religious event.
Because it'll be like taking coffee all over again. It can take as much as a week just for your whole system to reset itself from coffee. So try it. Now you find that coffee's not hitting you anymore, try something else. Stop coffee.
Let's list out some of the nice things about coffee. We have antioxidant. We have anti-radical. That's two different things, by the way. Hydrocyanamic acid and a lot of polyphenol. And one of the more interesting things that I came across during my research about coffee is that coffee has a lot of soluble fiber.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
It has a lot of soluble fiber. But please don't take coffee for the fiber.
Yeah, I would think so. You probably need a lot of it.
By the way, all of our claims and all of our research and all of our citations are available in the notes below. So go ahead and you can have a look at it.
And if we're wrong, please do correct us. So you were talking about the health benefits. Yes, what you said just now, it can help with exercise. It has a lot of health benefits. Can help you lose weight. You know, it can help you with
you gonna lose a little bit of weight compared to baseline. An obese patient will stay obese if they keep on drinking coffee. It's a complicated issue, but coffee helps.
Yeah, and guys, if you do have any form of insomnia, do limit your caffeine because it's gonna make your insomnia worse. If you can, just stop it completely. Having insomnia has a deleterious effect on your body. So you need to find some way to regulate your sleep, and caffeine is not it.
You want to have my hot take about insomnia?
Please, shoot.
If you want to do one singular thing that helps all aspects of your life in general, one thing you can do is better sleep. That is the foundation of a good person. Show me a person that is lack of sleep, I'll show you a messed up person there. So yeah.
Easier said than done, though.
Easier said than done. I would argue is actually, a quality, consistent sleep is as difficult as quitting smoking.
It is. It is. I would think so. There's many factors at play.
Many factors. Yeah, you're a father. I'm a father. We have jobs. We have life. Yeah. So sleep is one of those underrated. You take it for granted.
I think we can go on about insomnia as well. Yeah, sure. We could, but I think let's stick to our topic. Insomnia might be another topic for another day.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
Don't get me started.
Yeah, your coffee brain really did us in.
Oh my gosh! I think it's the caffeine that kicks in right now.
Yeah. You're lucky. I'd be on the floor otherwise if I didn't have this caffeine. Yeah.
Let's talk about other adverse claims, by the way, about coffee. Like coffee, recently it's quite all over the news that coffee now has to carry a carcinogen label in certain places like California.
Really?
Oh yeah.
In itself or the coffee?
Coffee, not caffeine. If you want to sell coffee in, let's say, in the state of California, the story of the news goes is that you have to put the label that coffee may cause cancer.
But you can't because it has to, when it refers to a carcinogen, it actually referring to a specific product.
Specific product inside the coffee. Glad you asked.
Yeah.
And the name of that product is called acrylamide. Because coffee is roasted in high temperature in most of coffee, but anyway.
Yeah, I read about this acrylamide. It's also found in your French fries. It's terrible, you know, what you're finding out with modern science.
I am not siding one or the other. I am just a dumb internet people. So don't take my advice. Do your own research. Here's the thing. There are acrylamides in coffee because of the roasting process. Most coffee are roasted in a giant, you and I can fit in there, a giant roasting oven. And most of those ovens are made out of metal that contains acrylamide. And in those high temperature, some claim that those acrylamide will leach into the coffee and you and I will drink the acrylamides.
Okay, I was reading differently. I need to double check that, fact check it as well,
Sure.
which is the acrylamide is actually formed on the French fry like that as a conversion of a food process. So
I read that as well myself, but I also read that, for example, you know the air fryer? That once that they said,
yeah, there was a big hoo-ha.
yeah, there's a big hoo-ha, don't buy air fryer, and then there was like a boycott of air fryer food here and there. And at one time, what happened to that? It died out. It turns out to be, there are acrylamide in those food that came out from an air fryer, but it is not more than any other type of oven or any type of cooking methods, right? So back to your point. Yeah, carcinogen. It's everywhere. The sun is a carcinogen. We just need to choose our poison sometimes.
You do, but you also have to choose the amount of poison. The amount of poison is what makes all the difference in the world. You know, the carcinogen, yes, it's carcinogenic, but when you take it on a one-off basis, it's not. It's when you take it on a regular basis that makes all different. Then it will affect your body and your body's ability to clear it out from your system. And how it adversely affects your system can then cause the cancer.
Amen to that. Again, we need to choose the poisons. We need to choose our poison because almost anything can kill you. Let me read something from the National Library of Medicine, United States, by the way. While acrylamide is considered a probable carcinogen, probable is certainly not definite. In fact, one recent review on coffee and cancer risk note, epidemiological study and retrospective reanalysis of data published so far failed to provide sufficient evidence that dietary acrylamide increases the risk of any type of cancer in human, including kidney, blah, 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 blah. So, yeah.
That one study or is that many studies?
Because it says data published so far, because that refers to a few studies.
Yeah, a lot of things are subject to long interpretation. What you see in one study may not reflect another study. So ultimately, it's going to be the quality of the study that you need to interpret as well.
Again, sometimes these scientific medical journals, the language that they use sounds scary, but it's actually not. It's actually not. Probable carcinogen, it's not going to kill you. Probable carcinogen is like saying water can drown you, so don't play with water.
Yeah. I think it's more cautionary.
Cautionary.
And asking you to limit, because of its carcinogenic content, it's asking you just to limit to a more smaller dose or not so regular basis.
I just found another one. It's from International Agency for Research for Cancer, routinely publish monographs in which specific substances are evaluated for their potential carcinogen to human and subsequently categorized into one of four groups. Group 1, carcinogen to human. Group 2A, probable carcinogen to human. Group 2B, possible carcinogen to human. And Group 3, not classified as carcinogen. So example is class 2A, which is acrylamide, probable carcinogen. Do you know what else is inside 2A?
What else?
Shift work and red meat. That means if you work at night, you will expose yourself to the same, according to this classification, same level of carcinogen as coffee. So you drink coffee because you need to do shift work, so you get double doses of class 2A.
So I think that brings us back to our main point, with anything, whether it's coffee, tea, anything that you take in your daily life, it's about balance.
Yeah, it's about balance. I don't think you will die from drinking coffee.
You won't. But you're not gonna have that as your lead take. Are you gonna make sure coffee is your main food intake, or are you gonna diversify your food intake? And coming to balance, I think one of the things that I talked about when I first met you, Justin, was I was telling you all about homeostasis, and that's the medical term we use for finding balance in the body. We don't want to have too much of one thing. How it exits out and how it maintains its balance is key to a good body function.
We're gonna go to another session. It's called Myths and Match. I'm gonna say a few controversial hot takes. You tell me what you think about it. I am tolerant to coffee. I think we mentioned this before. I can even drink coffee just before bed and I will sleep like a baby.
No, we talked about that, didn't we? We talked about coffee and its half-life, and how you and I actually are quite in sync that we don't take coffee after 3 p.m., right?
Our consensus is that you may think you can go to sleep, but your quality of sleep will be affected. Second, strong coffee, it is black/bitter coffee.
Yes, that's the general consensus. That was my opinion as well.
I wouldn't say that's wrong, but it's one way of describing it. Strong coffee, does that mean it is more potent with caffeine? Does it mean it is more bitter? Or does it mean it is more concentrated? So I would say there's no answer for this one. It's more complicated than it first seems.
I think you were bang on the ball. You were saying a bitter coffee doesn't necessarily mean a good caffeine kick as well, right?
Yep. The third one, coffee is a diuretic.
Yes, it is.
I would say no, it isn't. It's neutral. It is a diuretic, but that diuretic is bound in H2O. You are drinking H2O together with the diuretic. It's a mild diuretic at best.
First and foremost, let's explain what diuretic.
What's diuretic?
Well, diuretic means a chemical compound that actually helps with the outflow of your liquid, primarily your urine output. I think in that respect, coffee is, as you put it, a mild diuretic, because primarily by increasing the flow of blood. By increasing the flow of blood, it makes sense that the flow to your kidneys would be more.
If you drink one shot of espresso, probably you're going to lose a little bit more water. But if you're drinking kopi or iced Americano, it doesn't matter that much.
It's going to come down to how much caffeine. The active ingredient is caffeine, not anything else.
Are you ready for the next one? This is going to be very interesting. Coffee prevent Alzheimer's.
I would like to read up, but it makes logical sense that it would, because I've seen patients take coffee.
Again, from my favorite website, National Library of Medicine, it is.
There you go.
Effect of daily coffee consumption on the risk of Alzheimer's disease, systematic review. Yes, it correlates to a better outcome, but you have to be a lifelong user of coffee.
This is going to be a drug.
Drink coffee then. This segment has been brought to you by coffee.
Justin's coffee.
I told you, if I were to make my coffee and ask money from it, I'll be sleeping under a bridge.
Yeah. I think like what you mentioned just now, it's quite an interesting perspective. You do it for the passion, and when it becomes a commercial interest, you lose that.
You saw it, 5-second montage. I made that coffee. It took us 40 minutes to shoot that. Okay, the fifth one, another hot take. Coffee causes heart attack.
I would say there's many variations to look at that. If you do have a heart problem, particularly if you do have hypertension, a slight chance that it could trigger something.
I want to read off my research from harvardhealth.edu. It says no, it doesn't cause heart attack, but I'm on your side on this argument actually, because just now as we mentioned about my references about caffeine, one of the side effects of caffeine is cardiovascular constriction. That means when you drink coffee, your cardiovascular actually it will tense up and shrink, and it will give you high blood pressure. You can do this experiment on your own. Before and after a cup of coffee, your blood pressure will go up. Now, for a healthy person, does that matter? Not at all. But for a person with underlying condition, it could be.
Some have found that consumption of caffeine increases cardiovascular risk, while others have described as a beneficial or neutral effect on the same. It is evident that the cardiovascular response to this substance depends on a variety of factors: amount ingested, time of consumption, frequency, degree of absorption, hepatic, which means your liver, metabolism. All aspects cause a unique response in each individual, so everyone's different.
My response to that is running is good for heart health. Yeah. The next statement, running causes heart attack. Both of that statement, it's true. By the way, one of that marathon that I've been to, in front of my eyes, someone collapsed and died because of heart attack.
So that's why there is varying conditions, okay? And I think what has to be highlighted here is pre-existing conditions.
Pre-existing condition. So, that guy who collapsed and died in front of my eyes, he is not the fittest of example out there. He is in his late middle age, and you can tell he don't run.
Yeah,
and he started running and he died.
But there could be other factors where you could have a fit individual, but most of these people, the people who died, they have an undiagnosed condition.
And heart attack. And because my statement is coffee causes heart attack. Just looking at this statement here, there are so many types of heart attack out there. You know, cardioarrhythmia, and which is different from cardiovascular heart attack.
The one that's most common in this individual is usually an undiagnosed arrhythmic condition.
Okay, next statement. Coffee can sober you up.
Oh, I'm not sure about that.
I would say no, but it helps. If you have a migraine headache, caffeine helps. And one of the way you get a headache is from alcohol.
No, wait. First and foremost, we're going a whole new can of worms here. Headaches have many different causes. Sure. Now, caffeine, interestingly, is actually used for the treatment of migraine. And the way that works is because migraines are usually caused by vasodilation inside your brain. Caffeine works to work opposite that vasodilatation and reduce the pressure there. So the different contexts.
Sure.
And I think you can't. It would be wrong of us to make statements like that. But it's an interesting fact that you noted there.
My last one would be pregnant women shouldn't drink coffee. This is a very interesting point because you just had a baby.
Yes, my wife completely abstained from coffee in that time. I think there's a lot of factors in which caffeine can affect not only the mother but also the child, and in a fragile state where bones, brains, neural cells are being formed, you don't want outside factors coming and affecting those processes.
I have a 11-year-old and a 12-year-old. I just allowed them to drink coffee.
Yeah, I had a controversy about that. I mean, before the advent of internet, with my nieces, I was telling them that, no, you shouldn't drink coffee. Your brain is still developing. And now I find that research says it doesn't really affect. But I won't make any staunch claim. I think it's something that we should look into, especially for a teenage brain or even a young kid.
I would, in the opinion that we try not to bring too much stimulant to a developing brain.
Definitely. Everything in moderation, but
Moderation.
it's well, cold turkey. Cold turkey is the other thing. I mean, that you don't even allow them an ounce of coffee as well. Whether that should be in play. There are some methods that don't even allow any sweets because they feel sugar will affect their development and progress. But I think the jury's still out on that one. I think like we have to think like the Jedi. Only the Sith deals in absolute. I think that can't be the case in a real human life. There are a lot of gray areas that we don't understand, and we have to look at what the research says and find a balance in between.
It's an interesting picture, I would say, but I do vouch for nitro and cold brew. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Nitro has the most amount of coffee.
For those of you who are new to cold brew and nitro coffee, they brew that coffee overnight in ice cold water. They drip it onto the coffee grind and they sip that coffee overnight. So it has plenty amount of time and not just time, and without the high temperature to destroy the caffeine. So that's why you have such a high caffeine in nitro and cold brew. And espresso is not that bad.
Well, yeah. I mean, I was thinking the espresso is the evil one since it tastes so bitter, and this clarifies your point.
You drank that much of espresso. You drink that much of iced coffee.
Well, I think the misconception is that it's the bitterness that what you mentioned just now. It's not associated.
You can do that. By the way, don't do it at night. You can do this experiment. You can buy caffeine pills. For you can go to sports supplements shop. They do sell caffeine pills, and it scares me, man. People take those and go to gym. Gym bros. No, I don't do that. You can unlatch the capsule, and you can taste the caffeine. It tastes like nothing. Yeah. It's not bitter. Caffeine, it's not bitter.
A very good analogy. So that means he's actually debunked one of my initial thoughts that the more bitter a coffee should be, the more caffeine.
The reason a coffee is bitter because it is dark and roasted for a long period of time. What bitter you taste there probably is carbonized polyphenols and yeah.
Do you remember one of the controversial topics I talked to you about, which is why I was so initially against coffee? According to the American Association, says that coffee can affect your cholesterol. And yeah, do you remember that topic we had? And I was telling you that dipentines, the brewing process releases dipentine, which actually affect your cholesterol level and may even raise it. Now, what the article further stated was the key way to reduce the dipentines is to actually use a filter. What you're getting in most coffee shops is they don't use filters. They just use the metal mesh, right?
You are referring to those Western style cafe kind of coffee?
Yeah, well, any coffee shop. I don't see them using the paper filter at all.
It depends on the brewing method, I have to say. For example, the Kopitiam Kopi O, they do use a filter. It's called the muslin cloth, and the Chinese would call it the sock, the coffee sock.
That is in our Kopitiam. But not in the cafes that we go to.
You see this guy here? It's called a V60.
Yep.
This is actually the simplest of methods of brewing coffee. Hold this. This brewing method will use a filter.
I see.
And then, does that ease your concern? Because I've shown you this before.
Because what it says is that it effectively filters out the dipentine, which raise your cholesterol. The one with the paper filters effectively block them out, but not the ones that you have in the cafe. The ones the cafe don't.
Espresso, traditionally they don't use filter, but these days, there are people like myself. There are people who use filter in their espresso puck as well.
I've noticed that you used it in yours, and
not for the dipentine issue.
Why do you use it?
It's more for homogeneity. It's gonna be so nerdy about this. When you do espresso, the most important thing is homogeneity of extraction. You want to extract the coffee from the coffee grind as uniform as possible. That hence you get a good cup of espresso versus a bad cup of espresso. If you put a filter there on top and at the bottom of the puck, the water passing through it will be more uniform. Nothing to do with health.
In American Medical Association, it says it does adversely affect your cholesterol level.
It doesn't say is by how much.
It affects every person differently. But just
Keep an eye on it.
just keep an eye on it.
But we'll keep an eye on it. I won't stop drinking coffee because of.
Yeah, neither would I. Neither would I. If you do have a cholesterol problem, there's some of us who do, and in fact, majority of Malaysians do have cholesterol problems. And I think if you do, and it's extremely high, you should take note of the brewing method of coffee, and perhaps, as they say, use a filter in your coffee.
I would say coffee is very low in my list of concern if I have cholesterol issue. There are other things, like for example, smoking.
It's not just one thing, it's a confluence.
It's a lifestyle problem. It is not a singular.
It's a confluence of many things. Your health, your fitness, what you take in, what your sleep patterns is like. It's many things.
I like it when you say it's sleep.
It reflects what you were saying just now, how sleep is important.
Do you know sleep can lower your cholesterol?
I'd ask you to research that, but yes, it makes logical sense.
Future episode. Do you want to lose weight fast? Sleep.
Yes, I believe there's some literature that I read.
Oh my gosh, you have no idea.
Yes. It increases your when you don't have enough sleep, you have cortisol raising issues.
I would say it's much more complex than that because this is an endocrinal problem. Endocrinal problem is your whole body problem. It affects every corner of your body, and sleep is the most important regulator of your endocrine system.
That's right.
So do you have anything to from your notes?
Well, our topic says coffee, tea, or meth. Now, let's not divulge too much into meth because it's haram. Stay away from meth. So, that being said, I mean, meth on its own, it does have medical uses, but under the purview of a doctor.
I read it somewhere many years ago. You mentioned it in your notes that meth and ADHD.
As I was saying, there is medical use for meth, but under controlled supervision from a licensed doctor to use meth. It's primarily used in two areas, in ADHD as well as an appetite suppressant as well. For those who are morbidly obese, in a way that you're obese to an extent that is affecting your health.
Don't worry, there are much more popular drugs out there for treating obesity these days. Ozempic.
Oh no! Those are the new development that's come out. That works by a different mechanism. How methamphetamines work? Popularly started off as the first.
It's a stimulant, isn't it?
Which is fenfluramine.
It's a stimulant, isn't it?
It is a stimulant. It comes under the class of stimulants, but methamphetamine works, well, the fenfluramine, the appetite suppressant that I was talking about, works on the satiety center up here. It depresses your satiety and reduces your need for hunger. And those are one of the medical uses that you have for methamphetamines.
Do you know what else suppresses hunger? Good night of sleep.
I would think so. There's many benefits.
If you got drunk and you don't have a good night of sleep, what do? McDonald's, not a sponsor. Meth. How about oxalates? So you have.
Why are you asking about oxalates?
Well, I heard that you have a very interesting story about oxalate that affected your health.
I am prone to kidney stones, and I've had kidney stones on 1 or 2 occasions. I think it's more of a family thing, a genetic thing, but nonetheless, I still had it. But it's not just genetics. There's a confluence of factors here, which is your intake. I think at that time, I was taking a lot of tea, and it came to my notice that tea is very high in oxalates. Now, how does this work? Oxalates. What are oxalates? Oxalates are naturally occurring compounds found in plants. Now, our topic of discussion is tea, coffee. Tea contains oxalates. Now, what are the types of teas and the oxalate content? Black tea has the highest oxalate content, oolong pu'er, moderate levels, green tea, lower level, but the lowest of them all is white and purple tea. Now, reducing your oxalate content. Limit your black tea. Opt for green or white tea. Add milk to tea. And don't forget, oxalate just isn't found in tea. It's found in many other food items. Kale, spinach, raspberries, almond, and soy. Why oxalates matter? Oxalates plus calcium equals crystals. Crystals cause kidney stones. You don't want that. Drink a variety of teas. Add milk to teas. Stay healthy and happy.
Does that mean we should stop drinking tea?
No, so as you saw in the video, there's varying levels of oxalate in different types of tea. As it was mentioned there, the black tea had the highest. There's also factors that you can do to alleviate the oxalate levels, which is taking your tea with milk, because the oxalate would bind with the calcium in your intestine and form the crystals there and not allow the oxalate to enter, thereby reducing your oxalate intake.
And it has nothing to do with calcium supplements that we take, right?
No, it can. Well, you think about it.
I were to say my hot take about this is it's more complicated than it first seems. It's like spinach is supposed to be good for you. We all know that. Milk somehow have calcium, and drinking milk with tea reduces the calcium in your blood, because you don't want calcium in your blood. You want calcium.
You want some level of calcium. You don't want too much calcium.
Because calcium itself is an electrolyte.
Yes, in its free form, Ca2+. In its free form, it is an electrolyte. It's free floating, but being an open electrolyte, it can bind with items. And oxalic acid, oxalates, is one of those things that it can bind with. But you don't want it binding it. You don't want it binding in your blood vessel. You want it binding it in your gut. And that's where milk makes all the difference.
You do drink tea right now?
I do, but I've actually reduced. I used to take a lot of kale. I've reduced that, given my preponderance for stones. For anyone out there suffering the same, I would advise that you watch your oxalate content and your intake with the specific foods.
Here's a hot take from me. I'm going to say it out loud, and I'm sure I'm going to offend a lot of people. Osteoporosis, at least in Malaysian settings, are not caused by deficient in calcium in diet.
I think we need to look at the recent research.
Osteoporosis are mainly caused by sedentary and endocrinal issues. That's my hot take.
Yeah. I think that's going to be another topic.
That's another topic for another episode.
But I would, off the offshoot, disagree from you being a Sith. Nothing in absolutes. I would say there's a bit of truth to having a reduced calcium intake. It is probably, there's other factors as well at play.
There is no lacking in calcium in Malaysian diet.
Well, we have a lot of meat. We have milk.
I think it depends on generation. I think some of the older generation don't, especially Chinese community.
That's because there's a high preponderance of lactose intolerance.
In East Asian.
Yes, in East Asian, which is why they take themselves away from milk or don't even take milk, which may lead to those problems.
We set ourselves for another episode, right?
Yes, we have.
You know what? It has been a long day for you and me.
Yep, all that brewing.
We'll talk about another topic from another brew another time.
Yep, we will.
So see you guys. Stay tuned. Bye.
Bye, guys. Thank you.